Hello duelists, it's Tombox here, and I guess in this video we are going to be doing a rulebook segment on Toadally Awesome, Tree Toad. This guy right here, you probably can't see it, but anyways, we'll see it right here. So Tree Toad, is he actually that complicated of a card? Well, I'm going to do a full-on breakdown of this card and cover some of the situations that you guys probably want to know before you get into your next big tournament. Starting off with the most basic step, let's read the frickin' card. Toadally Awesome, also known as Tree Toad, is a water rank 2 monster, aqua type, XYZ effect monster. It requires 2 level 2 aqua type monsters to exceed into. So let's just read the card text. There's 3 parts to the effect. So the first part is once per turn during the standby phase, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card, special summon 1 frog monster from your deck. Okay, standby phase trigger. Once per turn, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell or trap card or monster effect, you can send 1 aqua type monster from your hand or face up from your side of the field to the graveyard to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card, then set it to your field. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 water monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Okay, those are the 3 effects. So we got a basic summon during standby phase, a negation effect that's not quite CDI equivalent, but pretty close, and we have a retrieval effect. So overall, the card text does seem pretty simple to understand, but there are some complicated situations. And before I get into those complicated situations, let's go over some of the basic situations. So say you have 2 Totally Awesomes on the field, and what happens during the standby phase? Well, they do not start a chain. This is one of those effects similar to the Fire King avatar. If you have multiple destroyed, you're in that loop. They don't chain on top of each other. Therefore, it does not create any sort of chain blocking. So if you actually can negate both copies, well, you got both copies negated. And for the negation effect, unlike Cyber Dragon Infinity or like Apex Avian, Mist Valley Apex Avian, this card cannot negate spells and traps that are already face up. You can only negate the activation of the card and not the card effect. By card effect, I mean the things already face up and you try to trigger it again. That won't work. This includes stuff that are activating in the graveyard because you're not activating the card, you're activating the effect. So those are stuff that you cannot negate with Toadally Awesome. And as for the add back to hand effect when it is sent to the graveyard, well, you can of course add back, fusions, extra deck cards back to the extra deck rather than add to your hand. That's pretty basic. If you don't know this, well, now you do know it. Now to go into some of the more complicated negation ruling, because this card can negate everything, and what makes it really complicated is that setting part of it. That setting effect, this is one of the first of its kind, where you negate something and then you steal the card. And this is one of the first times where it's actually kind of meta relevant, where you get to steal one of your opponent's spell and trap and use it, unlike using Grave Robber and all those other old cards. This is actually going to be a lot more frequent, so it's best to know how to actually handle all the situations. So I have my references linked in the description below. This is from Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization about the Invasion Vengeance ruling. So if anything, you can reference to them, and I'm basically just regurgitating what they got. So before I go into the top-down example view, I'm going to talk about a trap monster Dimensional Reflector, because this seems like a one-off case where a trap monster does have an activated effect. Now, the card I'm talking about is Dimensional Reflector. This card basically turns into a trap monster which copies the stat of your opponent's monster, but when it happens, it triggers an effect where it burns your opponent for that much. So it's like a living magical cylinder? Sure, let's put it that way. It's a magical cylinder with legs. What happens when Toadally Awesome negates it is, negates that monster, destroys it, say on the burning effect of course, and then when that happens, it will set it in the back row as a trap. What happens is, in almost all cases, the checking of where it can go is after the destruction. So it will only set it in the appropriate position, and if there's a spot where it cannot be set in, it's not going to happen. So let's go into some examples here. Alright, So now that we've established trap monsters, let's go into pendulums. Pendulums may seem a bit complicated, but hopefully I can help you clear that up. So starting off with the most basic part about pendulums, just the regular monster effect. So if I normal summon out this performable Skullcrobat Joker, activate the effect to search out a performable card in my deck. Say I'm going to search out this Sorcerer. Toadally Awesome can send itself or another Aqua type monster to the graveyard and negate and destroy it, and it'll go to the extra deck. Even though it goes to the extra deck, it will still come back as a set card. It does not care where it ends up, so just bear that in mind. But for more complicated ruling, what happens if, say, I put this Luster Pendulum onto the Pendulum scale? Of course, Toadally Awesome can negate spells and traps, so it's going to negate it, paying the cost, destroying it, sending it to the graveyard because my activation was negated, and it is going to set it where? I can't set it here in the Pendulum scale. You would negate it as a spell, but it doesn't check until it hits the graveyard, and it'll set it in the appropriate location, which would be in the monster zone. So if you activate a Pendulum scale, it will be negated and sent to the graveyard, and then summoned out face down on the monster zone. Now do note that Toadally Awesome cannot negate stuff that already face up. For this example, I'm going to use already face up Pendulum scales. We have a Silvered and we have a Luster Pendulum. Luster Pendulum will activate, Toadally Awesome cannot negate it, and the Silvered will be destroyed, sent to the extra deck, and I'll search a new copy from the deck. Now, just remember that if I do play this copy, Toadally Awesome will probably negate it. And this will still be set onto that side after it gets destroyed. Now I did mention that Toadally Awesome does not care about where the card goes as long as it is able to destroy it. So that being said, Dark Claw is a very common card paired up with Toadally Awesome. Toadally Awesome does not care where it goes, so even if the card gets banished, say I did summon a gadget and activate the effect to, say, summon another card from my hand, it gets negated and destroyed and gets banished, and it will still get set. So yeah, Toadally Awesome kind of sucks when it comes to not caring where things go. So this is one of the cards that basically ignore all locations of where it can go, and it will still steal your card. Now one thing to note about Toadally Awesome is that it is considered or treated as a special summon when it does set a monster onto your side of the field. So what that means is Nomi monsters like Mooling Glacia or the Infernoid lineup, those guys, you actually can't set them. So for this example, say I make the condition in my graveyard and I summon out the Mooling Glacia from my hand and activate the effect to rip out 2 cards in my opponent's hand. He uses Toadally Awesome to negate and destroy it, sending it to the graveyard, but it cannot be set because of its own conditions. And because it is treated as a special summon, it's not going to work. Now, also on that note, it is considered a special summon, so what happens if, say, you drop a Maxx C? And then you go ahead and do your thing, or like, oh, I'm gonna summon and activate, this guy gets destroyed, negated, and, well, say he does set it. To my current understanding, it is treated as a special summon, so consider it like a shallow grave. Say you will get to draw a card, but please confirm with your judge on this, because if there's anything that's uncertain, always call up the judge that's the head judge of the event, so then you have a consistent ruling throughout the event. So now that we have established that Toadally Awesome's setting effect is treated as a special summon, and you can also check the references down below in the description for that, note that what happens when you throw Solemn Warning into the equation. So if I activate as a Pendulum scale, I can activate Solemn Warning to negate Toadally Awesome's negation effect, along with, because like Macrocosmos, you can activate Solemn Warning to negate Macrocosmos because it does have a special summoning clause for summon out Helios. And just because you have the chance to summon it out, even though you don't run Helios in your deck, it still considers the possibility because we don't know anything about your deck, so Solemn Warning will be allowed to activate. However, what gets complicated is if you summon out a Nomi monster, a monster that cannot be special summoned except by its own condition, or just a monster that cannot be special summoned in general. Can you actually use Solemn Warning to negate Toadally Awesome? See, the difference in this situation is that this is a known fact that this monster cannot be special summoned, compared to the Macrocosmos where we have uncertainty whether or not the monster can be special summoned or not. to my knowledge, if you do negate with Toadally Awesome and negating a Mulan Glacia, I don't think you can negate Toadally Awesome's effect with Solemn Warning, because it has been established that this card is definitely not going to be special summoned. And in other words, there's no way that this card can get set on that side of the field, so there's nothing for Warning to actually negate. This is just a situation of public knowledge versus, not public knowledge, where, there's the chance of them still being able to summon something, versus this one has absolutely no chance of being set onto the other side of the field. Another situation that you guys may run into is if Denko Sekka is on the field and Toadally Awesome is also on the field, and I activate, say, Raigeki to destroy your entire board. While Toadally Awesome can negate the Raigeki, that's okay, but the Raigeki will not get set into the back because Denko Sekka is on the field. So in other words, you don't get to steal the card because you can't set the card. The same situation goes for Metal Foes. Metal Foes Silvered cannot pop the other face-up card on the field to set a spell trap because Denko Sekka is on the field. Even if it's by effects, you cannot set because the mechanic is actually right now shut off. Alright, for this last little bit, it's actually going to get a little bit confusing. Hopefully you guys can follow up with me. I did make a mistake in my first run on this, so I'm going to make sure it's as clear as possible now. Now, the destruction of the card must happen with Toadally Awesome for you to actually take control of it. However, you don't actually get to destroy the card in all cases. Especially when it comes to paying cost for a card by, say, tributing itself or discarding out of your hand. Because the card text specifically states destroy that card, basically if the card leaves the position of where it activated, it is no longer technically that card. Destroying that card versus destroying it is quite different because destroying it usually follows the card. I'm going to go into some comparative examples, so hopefully you guys can kind of follow up on this. For one of the examples, I'm going to start with Eccentric Archifiend. If you use Eccentric Archifiend's effect to destroy Tree Toad, and then you activate Tree Toad's effect, sending a water monster to the graveyard to negate that, you will not be able to destroy Eccentric Archifiend because you did not destroy Eccentric Archifiend. Pendulum cards technically can be destroyed in the extra deck, but Tree Toad will not be able to destroy this card, mainly because of the fact that it activated on the field, and it is no longer on the field during the resolution, so that card does not exist. This actually goes for Solemn Strike as well. If you actually use Solemn Strike on an Eccentric Archfiend that's about to destroy a monster, it does not get destroyed out of the extra deck. Now, comparatively, if you destroy an Ariadne that's activating in the extra deck, and then you use Toadally Awesome to negate that, you will actually destroy it again, sending it straight from the extra deck to the graveyard. This is actually true. There is a reference for this ruling. It is by Konami. And then you can actually take control of it. Why? Is because the activation of Ariadne is happening in the extra deck. It did not actually move out of anywhere else. So Toadally Awesome is capable of destroying stuff in the extra deck, just as any other card is technically able to destroy it. If you Solemn Strike an Ariadne, it will actually be destroyed again, so you'll actually be able to search again. You'll trigger Ariadne again, so don't Solemn Strike an Ariadne in the extra deck anymore, okay guys? That is one ruling that a lot of people didn't think correctly, but you can actually get a second search, so basically you can burn off another card. Another card to compare is Maxx C Vs Gorz. If my opponent activates Maxx C and I negate with Toadally Awesome will not be able to take control of Maxx C. Firstly, you can't destroy things in the graveyard, and Maxx C basically isn't in the hand anymore for you to destroy. And secondly, if you do negate a Gorz on the other hand, a Gorz will be destroyed in the hand because Gorz does not summon himself until the resolution, and since their activation was negated and he is destroyed, you'll be able to set the Gorz that was negated and destroyed out of your opponent's hand. And similarly, say I summon up my gold gadget, or say you attack with Toadally Awesome into my gold gadget, I activate the effect and you negate it, you will not be taking the gold gadget because Toadally Awesome did not destroy gold gadget because it's already in the graveyard. You can't destroy something that's already in the graveyard, so this card will not go onto that side of the field. So that basically covers it for Toadally Awesome. If there's any ruling that I may not have covered completely, you can leave it down in the comment section below. The Maxx C thing, I am still a bit confused whether or not you still draw or not, but based on my current understanding of the card, you can draw if you do set from that Maxx C. And if you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more content from MST.TV and Tombox.TV, well, subscribe to Tombox.TV and MST.TV. Tombox.TV is where I'm going to be putting a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. I haven't gotten around to it lately because, well, MOS is around the corner. It is this week, so if you paid attention to this video, yay, see you guys at MOS 4. And like always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.